Good evening, YouTube. You guys are now watching another segment of TheCaliEffect, King of Games. And today we're going to be doing a full set review of the Dark Savior set. This set contains Fur Hire, Vampires, and Sky Strikers monsters, as well as some sought after reprints. So it's going to be really interesting and exciting to reveal this entire set for you. Now, for the people that don't like spoilers, I strongly advise you to click somewhere else because we will be going over every single card inside of this set and revealing you what they do and how much do I think these cards will be. Before we get into this video, I want to give a mad shout out to all of my Patreons. You guys were the reason why these type of videos exist. I really appreciate you guys. Also, a mad shout out to everybody that has bought, sold, or traded cards to me. You guys are important as well. So without further ado, I present to you a full Dark Savior spoiler and set review. Okay, so we're going to start off with the vampire monsters. I'm going to break this down into 4 different subsections. First is going to be vampires. I think next is going to be the Fur Hire monsters, then Sky Strikers, and then after that, we're going to talk about all of the reprints. I don't really see this being a very long video, but if it is, down below in the description is going to be basically all of the things where, all of the places where I start talking about certain cards. So we're going to be starting off with Vampire Familiar, the first card of the set, and it is a level 1 super rare zombie dark monster whose effect reads, if this card is special summoned, you can pay 500 life points to add 1 vampire monster from your deck to your hand, except Vampire Familiar. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 vampire card from your hand or face up in your field to the graveyard, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Vampire Familiar once per turn. This card is pretty important. It is a super rare inside of the set, so don't expect it to peak past $1 once the set prices start to settle. Overall, I think that this card could have been a secret rare and been justified. It's one of the more powerful cards for the vampire archetype, allowing you to add a vampire monster from your deck to your hand, and all you have to do is special summon it. So, and on top of that, it has a built-in special summon-like effect. Next, we're going to be talking about is Vampire Retainer. Now, this card is also a super rare inside of this set, and it does similar to what Vampire Familiar does. It says if this card is special summon, you can pay 500 life points to add 1 vampire spell or trap card from your deck to your hand, and if it's in your graveyard, you can send 1 vampire card from your hand or face up to your field to the graveyard to special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use the effect of Vampire Retainer once per turn. Now, this monster is a little bit stronger than the Familiar, and its effects are a little different because it allows you to search the spells and traps. I think that both of these cards are critical to the vampire strategy because they do allow you to tutor out other cards, and on top of that, they also have their own special summon ability. So not only can you pay 500 life points to search and special summon them to your side of the field, you can also use them for a link summon for your, of course, Vampire Sucker, which I hope you guys got inside of the Flames of Destruction set. This card as well shouldn't be more than $1 once the set settles down. I could see these cards being $5 around pre-release, but then settling down to a very, very dollar-like price. They're not going to be worth anything. To the next card, I think we're going to be talking about our first secret rare of the set, Vampire Fraulein, and this secret rare is a level 6 or level 5 zombie dark monster whose effect reads, when a monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. You can only use the effect of Vampire Fraulein, I hope I'm saying that card's name right, once per turn. Once per battle, when your zombie monster battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation, you can pay life points in multiples 100 or in multiples of 100, the maximum is 3,000. That monster you control gains that much attack and defense during the damage calculation only. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroys a monster by battle, you can special summon as many monsters of those monsters as possible from the graveyard to your field. Now, Vampire Fraulein isn't necessarily a great card, but unfortunately, seeing that this is the Dark Savior set, something like a Hidden Arsenal set, this card could start off as a $20 secret rare and then probably dabble down to $5 or $10 because then you start to realize that this card is no more than a 2 of the deck, and it's not really that important to the strategy. The only reason why it's so good is because it's a level 5 zombie vampire monster. So it's a pretty decent card. It's not a terribly bad card, and it doesn't really help the strategy other than in terms of attack, and it's just overall not a terrible card. So be on the watch out for this card. If you guys do pull it out of your packs or whatever, get rid of it immediately because it's not going to stay up in price. Vampires, unfortunately, aren't that insanely competitive deck that can go toe-and-toe with the meta decks right now. The next card we're going to be talking about is Vampire Crimson. Now, Vampire Crimson is a super rare of the set, and it is a level 5 monster. Its effect reads, if a monster you control will be destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can pick 1,000 life points for each of those monsters. Instead, at the end of the battle phase, if this card has destroyed a monster by battle, you can special summon as many of those monsters as possible from your graveyard to your side of the field. Now, this is another generic level 5 vampire monster. It's not that great of an effect because it does protect your monsters, but its battle effect just doesn't seem really worth it. Again, the vampire archetype still has a lot of time, possibly even another support set to fill out to make themselves a little bit more viable, and this card isn't really more of a one-of, or more than a one-of inside of the vampire set, so I don't see it peaking anything over 50 cents to $1. Don't even bother trying to hold on to this card. The next card we're going to be talking about is Vampire Scourge. Now, this card actually, if I remember correctly, is one of the better cards for vampires, and it is a secret rare inside of the set. It says, if this card is normal summon or special summon, you can pay 1,000 life points, target one of your vampire monsters in your graveyard, except for Scarlet Scourge, special summon it, but it cannot attack that turn. You can only use the effect of Vampire Scarlet Scourge once per turn. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed an opponent's monster, you can special summon as many monsters as possible. If you guys are starting to catch the theme, the level 5 and higher vampire monsters seem to special summon your opponent's monsters to your side of the field if you destroy them by battle. This card is probably the most important card to the vampire deck. It is a level 6 monster. It does fit awkwardly with the deck, but it also fits very well with the new Xseed monster that they have. This card I don't see being less than $40 when it comes out. I think that actually probably could slip into the $35 range depending on how the Hidden Arsenal set pans out. But ultimately, I think that this is the vampire card. This is going to be the $20 vampire card when the dust settles, because you do need 3 copies of it, and no matter how good or bad vampires are, this is a secret rare for those vampire players that want to play the deck. The next card we're going to be talking about is Vampire Red Baron, and it is a level 6 vampire monster. It says once per turn you can pay 1,000 life points, then target one monster your opponent controls and one other vampire monster you control. Switch control of both of those monsters at the end of the battle phase. If this card destroyed a monster by battle, you can special summon those video monsters from your graveyard to the side of the field. Again, I'm going to start skipping that last part because all of the level 5 and higher vampire monsters have that effect. Vampire Red Baron is a super rare, and he actually doesn't seem like a very bad effect. Having the ability to mind control one of your monsters to your opponent's side of the field and give them basically a vampire retainer or even a vampire familiar is not a bad idea, especially seeing that you can get that monster back and all you have to do is destroy it by battle, and then possibly even trigger its effect again if you haven't used it that turn. So this card's actually pretty decent. Unfortunately, it is a super rare, so it's not really going to retain its value that much. Don't expect anything in this set to retain too much of a value unless it is the Sky Striker Ace or the Sky Striker monsters. Next card we're going to be talking about is Daphne Vampire Sheridan, and this is also what I want to say is a confirmed secret rare. And what it does is if you exceed this card by using a monster that is owned by your opponent as material, that monster's level is treated as 6. So basically the Red Baron does become a little bit more powerful because if you get to steal one of your opponent's monsters, you can now use it as an Xseed material. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, then target one card your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. Oh my God, that's pretty good. Once per turn, if a monster's on the field is sent to your graveyard, to your opponent's graveyard by a card effect or destroy a battle, and sent to your opponent's graveyard, you can detach one material, special summon one of those monsters to your side of the field in defense position. Daphne the Vampire Shadow is the very best vampire Xseed monster that this deck has. And unfortunately, it is a level 6, but it can treat the other monster that it steals as a level 6, so it doesn't make it that hard to actually get rid of. This card might be the most expensive card. I see it being a $50 card on its release. Probably not a $50 card, but I see inflation with a lot of these cards in the set, depending on the demand, if people really, really dig vampires. But ultimately, this is probably a $20 or $30 card. I can see it being 15 or 10 at the end of the day, mainly because it is an Xseed monster and you don't need multiples of them. I see the the Scarlet Scourge being the most sought after card because you need 3 copies, and this card being the second most sought after card besides the spell cards, because the spell cards are pretty mandatory for the deck. Next is going to be Vampire's Desire. And Vampire's Desire says activate one of these effects. Target one face-up monster you control. Send one vampire monster from your deck to your graveyard whose level is different from that monster. And if you do, that monster becomes the level of the monster sent to the graveyard. So pause right there. Normally we have, I apologize for that, but normally we have some really, really bad send to the graveyard effects. And this is one of them in theory because it doesn't necessarily do anything for you, but once you start to think and the gears start rolling, when you realize that your vampire monsters need to be in the graveyard because you have so many revival cards because they're a zombie archetype, and on top of that, that Scarlet Scourge works at its best when it's spell summoning monsters from the graveyard, this card becomes more palatable, as well as when you pair it to the fact that you can send a vampire monster from your deck to the graveyard. Oh my god, this card actually becomes extremely powerful to the deck. I think that is an instant 3-of. You have to play 3 of this, and unfortunately, it is a secret rare in the set, so this card could be $10 to $20 in itself once the dust settles. Its second effect says, target one vampire monster in your graveyard, send one monster you control to the graveyard, and if you do special summon that target, you can only activate one vampire desire once per turn, so that once per turn clause might make it a 2-of card, especially since seeing that it's searchable, but it's still a really, really good card. I could see the lowest point of this card being $5, so I still don't think that it's not worth hoarding or keeping on to. If you have it and it's worth more than $10 at set's release, get rid of it because it's not going to be much later. So the next card is going to be Vampire's Domain. And Vampire's Domain is one of the better cards for the vampires. It is an upcoming secret rare. It says once per turn you can pay 500 life points during your main phase. You can normal summon one vampire monster in addition to your normal summon or set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. If your vampire monster inflicts battle damage to your opponent, gain that much life points instead. Now this card makes Fallen that much more worth it because you can pay 3,000 life points for Fallen and then almost gain all of those life points back because of this card. And on top of that, it gives you a second summon. So this card is pretty important to the deck. This might be the most important card. I can see it maybe a $15, $10 card as well. It's really hard to gauge the hidden arsenal like sets because there are plenty of secret rares and hidden arsenal like sets that go to complete trash. I'm going basically off if vampires just so happen to top a couple of regionals here and there, this could be their max price. I can also see it being a $2 or $3 card, as well as the most expensive card still being Sky Scourge, but this card holding a respectable value. Another secret rare for the set is Vampire Awakening. Actually, I don't think this is a secret rare. No, it's a super rare. Vampire Awakening says special summon one vampire monster from your deck but destroy it during the end phase. I don't think that this card is that good. I think that it's going to be one of those cards that just get overlooked inside of the set. I don't think that it's really worth much. Not really much else to say. It's not a bad card. It's just not necessarily a great card because your vampire monsters, from what we've seen, don't really gain too many effects. I guess special summoning your Vampire Familiar or your Vampire Retainer is good, but seeing that it's a trap card, it's a pretty slow card, and it doesn't have a graveyard effect. The next card is Vampire Dominion, or Domination, my apologies, and it is a secret rare. It's basically your Infernity Barrier. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated while you control a vampire monster, negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. Then if the destroyed monster card was a monster, gain life points equal to its original attack. This is the best trap card that the vampires have in their arsenal, and I can see it being a 2-of in the deck because it is a hard once per turn. It's very searchable. I don't know if it's recursable just yet, but I know it's very searchable for the deck. So it's a pretty awesome card. The vampire archetype themselves, I can see them being a pretty decent deck. I could necessarily see them winning a regional. I could see it happening, mainly because a lot of people don't know what they do, so you can catch somebody off guard. But I also could see them as a very, very fun local level deck. If you guys see these vampire cards for an exorbitant price, which you feel is an exorbitant price, trust me, this deck isn't going to get higher than what it is for the sneak peek price. It will drop down. It's just a very solid, fun deck inside of the set. So now that we're done with the vampire cards, let's talk about those Sky Striker Ace, not those Sky Strikers, I apologize, the For Hire monsters inside of the set. Okay, so on to the For Hire monsters. This one was a little hard to do because at the time of recording this, there's still the Skyfang Brigade monsters, and a lot of them were blanked out, so I'm pretty sure I'm pretty accurate. It's going to be Dogma Marksman For Hire. He's a super rare for the set. This effect reads, during your main phase, you can special one For Hire monster from your hand, except Dumpa. Now, if I remember correctly, I think all the For Hire monsters have that clause to spell summon monster from your hand. If I do start to see it, the pattern, I'm just going to say they can follow the clause, and then I'm going to go to the real effect. If another For Hire monster is special summoned to your field while this monster is on your field, you can target one face-up card on the field, destroy. You can only use the effect of Dumpa once per turn. Now, this card is a super rare, so it's going to be extremely easy to get. I don't see it being more than $1 when the dust settles. The next card is going to be Recon Sky Scout, actually, I'm sorry, let me get you guys its English name. It's going to be Recon Scout For Hire. It is another super rare to the set. Now, it obviously has the special summon effect. If another for hire monster is special summoned to your field while this card is on the field, you can target one set card and destroy it. So basically, Recon and Dampa do very similar effects, but to the opposite side of the spectrum. One destroys face ups, one destroys face downs. The next effect is going to be Helmer of For Hire. I'm sorry, let's see its real name. Hellman Hellsman For Hire. That's actually, I like the English name a little better because it says Hellsman. Once during your main phase, obviously special summon one For Hire from your hand. If another For Hire monster is special summoned to your side of the field, while this card is on your field, you can discard one card, draw one, or discard one For Hire card, draw one card. This card is a super rare of the set as well. I don't see this being like extremely played in threes or anything. I think it's a pretty decent one or two of inside of the deck. But again, I'm not 100% sure how For Hires work exactly, so I could be wrong. But nonetheless, this card won't be expensive as all. Next is Beat Bladesman For Hire. And they actually fixed this card, and this is a secret rare. It looks like it's a secret rare in this set. So our very first secret rare for the For Hires, this says during your main phase, obvious clause, special summon a For Hire monster. If another Skyfang Brigade monster is special summoned to your side of the field, while this monster is in the field, you can add one Skyfang Brigade monster, or For Hire monster from your deck to your hand except himself. You can only use the effect of himself once per turn. So he is the searcher, he is the reinforcement of the army, and in fact, he is a warrior monster. So he works really well with, you guys should already know, Isolde. Not all of the For Hire monsters are warrior monsters. Actually, I have two beasts. I have a water, just a water aqua monster. And we have our main monster who's a warrior monster. This card is the go-to guy for the set. He's going to be $20-25 if you ask me when the price settles. He's the most important card to the deck, especially since he just seems so good. I just really like him as a card. The next card we're going to be talking about is Seal, Officer of For Hire, or his real name will be Seal Strategist For Hire. And it says, during your main phase, obvious clause, special summon. If another For Hire monster is special summoned while on your field, while this monster's on the field, target one For Hire monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. He is a super rare of the set, and I don't see him being played in more than two ofs. I don't think he'll be more than $1. Still a pretty decent card, and the For Hire monsters are shaping up to being a very board-reliant deck, so it'll lose to effects like Torrential Tribute, and they also seem to not have protection so far of whatsoever, and they don't seem to be really strong monsters, so Infinite Impermanence or cards like Skill Drains seems to completely ruin this deck, but nonetheless, it does seem like a pretty decent deck. Next is Bravo Fighter For Hire, and this card is going to be a super rare as well. During your main phase, obvious effect. If another For Hire monster is special summoned, that's another obvious effect. You can make all Skyfang Brigade monsters, or I'm sorry, all For Hire monsters gain 500 attack and defense until the end of the turn. I do like his attack. The fact that he can summon himself as a 2400 attack monster, in my opinion, at least warrants him as a one-of, at the very least a one-of into the deck. Unfortunately, his effect isn't that great because it's always into the end phase, so it's kind of weird. I don't really see him being a very important card. He won't be expensive at all. Next is, oh man, I don't even know how to say this card's name. I'm going to try to say it as I could. Sajita Maverick For Hire. It is another secret rare into the set, and it's a Winged Beast level 5 monster. It doesn't have the For Hire clause. If this card is special summoned, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each For Hire monster you control with a different name, except Sajita. Now, before we start, pause, time out, hold up, wait a minute. I actually made a video prior to this video talking to you guys about the new game mechanic procedures. If you guys have not seen that, then you might want to check them out. Basically, what happens in time in Swiss rounds is that you guys have to proceed to the end of that phase, and then after that, you decide the winner at the end of that phase, which makes Trickstar extremely dangerous. It makes burn cards extremely dangerous because using those burn cards could possibly win you the game in that phase, so you don't have to enter your battle phase. The reason why this card's so good is because it does inflict damage during that phase. So let's say if you go into time in your main phase, you can easily summon this card to get off some cheap damage and possibly even win the game. You can only use these effects of Sajita Solitary Skyfang Brigade once per turn. Your opponent cannot target For Hire monsters you control with card effects except this one. It's a pretty decent card. I see it as being one of the trash secrets because it doesn't really add much to the archetype other than a non-targeting ability, which exactly what I was talking about, but the burn damage would come up in time, so I don't see it being that expensive. This might actually be the card that if you pull as a secret, you'll wish it's something else, because you'll probably pull multiple and it won't be that worthwhile in multiple. So if you guys did pull this and somebody's really looking for it, probably get rid of it. Next is Dinah, champion of the Skyfang Brigade. Now this level 6 monster also does not have the same clause as the other Fur Hire monsters to special summon, but he does have a special summon effect. If this card is special summon, you can banish cards from your opponent's graveyard up to the number of Fur Hire monsters you control with different names. You can only use Dinah. Excuse me. You can only use Dinah once per turn. Your opponent cannot target Fur Hire monsters for attacks except for this one. So now, immediately after saying that Fur Hire monsters don't have the attack, they don't have the protection, here comes a monster with the attack and the protection. Unfortunately, I can only see him being as possibly a one of until decks start to get more graveyard aligned. And even if they do, this guy can easily be searched. So it's not necessarily a bad card. It just gives you your deck a little bit more flexibility inside of the archetype that you only need to use one of these guys. Again, I don't see him more than $5 himself as well. Next is another secret rare of the set. 3 secret rares in a row. Wiz Skyfang Brigade. It seems like all the higher level Skyfang monsters have a if this card is special summon clause, whereas the lower level Skyfang, or I'm sorry, Fur Hire monsters have you can special summon from your hand to your side of the field. The only thing that seems to be keeping this deck from being stupid good in my head right now is a card that will allow you to search multiple Fur Hires off of one. So basically, you activate this card and it searches you like 3 Fur Hire monsters. That would make this deck busted. If this card is special summon, you can gain life points 500 for each Fur Hire monster you control with different names. Not a great effect. When your opponent activates a spell or when your opponent activates a spell or trap or effect, you can discard 1 Fur Hire card and negate the activation. Oh my god, this card's good. It went from terrible to good. It's going to give you life points, and then it's going to turn around and negate the activations to spell and trap cards. Now, I don't really see this card as being more than a one-of. I think it wasn't necessarily deserving of its secret rare spot, but here we are in a secret rare spot. Another card that's just pretty good, but I don't see it more than $5, and I probably wouldn't play more than one, though its negation effect does seem really good. In theory, I probably summoned all my Fur Hire monsters to my side of the field, so it's like, how can I discard monsters that I don't have? So next, again, this is purely off of speculation. I haven't built a Fur Hire deck or tested out the strategy yet. Next is Lafaro, hero of the Sky or of the Fur Hires. Let me get its real name. He was actually the hardest one to find. His name is Raphael, champion of Fur Hire. You can see that he has an insane effect. He is a secret rare, so I think he's going to be pretty good. If this card is special summon, you can excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of Fur Hire monsters you control with different names other than Raphael. Add one of them to your hand. Also shuffle the rest back into your deck, so he's pretty good. When your opponent activates a monster effect, discard 1 card and negate the activation. That's pretty good. I don't like the fact that they don't negate the activation and destroy the card, but they actually still do negate the activation of monster effects, which could be pretty pivotal. I could see this guy being a 2 of type 3 of inside of the deck because he's just so freaking powerful. 2800 body, allows you to excavate cards depending on the Fur Hires, add cards, and the ability to disrupt the opponent. I see him as the genuine secret rare of the set. I think that's it. No, we have one more secret rare that I know of inside of this set. So let's talk about, Fur Hire. How's this card go? It goes Fandora the Flying Fortress. Basically what it says, during your draw phase, before you draw, you can give up your normal draw to add 1 Fur Hire monster from your deck to your hand. If you control 5 or more Fur Hire monsters with different names, you can send this card to the graveyard, destroy all cards your opponent controls. Also, your opponent takes no damage for the rest of the turn. I'm not 100% like happy with this card because it doesn't necessarily give you advantage. A lot of times, a lot of times I'd rather just have, I don't know, I'd rather just have the draw, unless there was a Fur Hire monster. Was there a Fur Hire monster that allowed me to draw that I just skipped? Target a set. Yeah, this one actually allows you to draw a card, so maybe it is a little more useful than I thought. Ultimately, I don't think that it's bad. It is a field spell card, but it isn't as good as I would hope. Having 5 Fur Hire monster with different names is really easy. It seems to be really easy to do. And it's just the fact that my opponent takes no damage means that if I have 5 for her monsters on my field, I should be winning the game anyway. So next is going to be, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. That's one thing I do want to emphasize. This is called Mayhem for Hire. It says target 1 for hire monster in your graveyard. Special summon that monster face up in defense position. You can only activate 1 Mayhem for Hire once per turn. Excuse me, and it's a quick play. And it's a secret rare. This card's dope. This card's straight up really good. It's an extraordinarily powerful card. I do think it's restricted by the once per turn clause, but it does seem like a really good card, you know, willing of the secret rare. Might be a $7 to $10 card itself. And then the last card we're going to talk about is, oh my God, I got to give you guys this name. It is so crazy. Training for Hire for all your training needs. Now, did they really have to do all that? They could have just said for hire training. Like, I don't know. It's just a really weird card. It is a continuous trap card. It says if a for hire monster you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can target one of those monsters. Special one on a for hire monster from your deck with a level less than the original level. You can only use one. You can only use the effects of 1 training for hire for all your training needs once per turn. And that's going to wrap up the for hire archetype. They do actually seem like a deck with a bit of a ceiling. I actually like the way that they can operate. This actually kind of seals the cake as a deck that can muster a lot of monsters to your side of the field. It's going to be, if you ask me, it seems familiar to Yang Zing, keeping board presence of your monsters on your side of the field and then gaining certain abilities. And unlike the... unlike Yang Zing's where they gain the ability to synchro summon on your opponent's turn and have like monsters unaffected, these Skyfang Brigade monsters actually seem to give you advantage, give you negation, give you life points, and inflict damage to your opponent. So it doesn't seem like a terrible archetype. But now we can talk about why we're genuinely here. Everybody's here for the Sky Striker cards and what their rarities are and what impact will they have on us in a format. So for the people wondering, yes, I did take a break. And also, yes, it is an entirely different day. I decided to do this in 2 separate recordings. So finishing on with the Sky Striker monsters, you're going to get Sky Striker Maiden Kagari, which is going to be a super rare from the set. It requires 1 non-fire Sky Striker Ace monster. You can only special summon 1 Sky Striker Maiden Kagari once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can target 1 Sky Striker spell card in your graveyard, add it to your hand, gains 100 attack for each spell card in your graveyard. Now, Sky Striker is supposedly going to be the better decks or the best strategy inside of the Dark Savior set, and I really have to lean towards it because I have seen the Sky Striker archetype firsthand. And if you guys want to see a Sky Striker deck profile, all you have to do is hit the like button on this video and go ahead and let me know down below in the comment section. I actually have a Sky Striker deck ready for you guys to show. This card is going to be a super rare, but still expected to be high in demand when it first comes out. If I were you guys, if I were to pull it, depending on if I'm seeing it being pulled a lot or a little, I would probably hold on to it, and it doesn't really matter about the price. I can see it being a $5 super rare just because it's being sought after when it first comes out, but then dwindling down to almost nothing. But still, you probably might want to hold on to yours if you are playing the archetype just because of the scarcity. I think that this is a card that might not be worth anything, but everybody has and nobody wants to get rid of. So you might just want to get your own because you do have to buy this set to get into this card. The next one will be Sky Striker Shizuku. Now let me get this right. Yeah, it's going to be Sky Striker Shizuku, another super rare in the set, and the other Sky Striker monster that comes into this set as a link monster. Now, this deck is extremely inhibited in the TCG because Summon Sorceress isn't necessarily out for the entire TCG Europe, and more importantly, Crystalline Needle Fiber. We don't have that yet. We won't be getting that until Battles of Legends like Revenge. So we are pretty much inhibited by what we can do with the Sky Strikers, but still nonetheless, it's a very good deck, has a pretty decent engine. And what Sky Striker Shizuku does, it requires one non-water Sky Striker monster. You can only special summon Sky Striker once per turn, her name. Monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each spell card in your graveyard. Once per turn during your end phase, if the card was special summoned this turn, you can add 1 Brandish, Sky Striker spell card from your deck to your hand with a different name from every card in your graveyard. So basically, it's the reinforcement of the army for the spell card version of the Sky Strikers. Still a really good card, and since it's a super rare, I still would give it the same effects as the other Sky Striker monster, the Kagaru. You guys might want to hold on to them no matter what their price is, because of the scarcity, or because if everybody has one, nobody might just get rid of theirs. On to the next card. We're going to be talking about basically the main card of the deck, the best card in the main deck. I'm just playing. It is the best monster in the main deck when it comes to the Sky Striker name, and its TCG name is Sky Striker Ace Ray, and it has a quick effect. You can tribute this card, special summon one Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to your extra monster zone. If a face-up Sky Striker Ace Link monster you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because an opponent's card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Sky Striker Ace Ray once per turn. So really good card to tutor your Sky Striker monsters from your deck, or from your extra deck to your side of the field. Is the tutor of the deck. He's pretty important, or she's pretty important. It comes out as a super rare as well. So far so good. The Sky Striker monsters are extraordinarily cheap. I think the only one that we need to be as a super rare is Hornet Drones, and basically you can splash the Sky Striker engine in almost every single deck besides Afterburner, because Afterburner is just gonna have to, Startup Engage is just gonna have to be a secret rare. There's no way around it. The next card is, oh my god, just the card I was talking about, and it is a secret rare, unfortunately. It's called Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. Now, it's something I actually want to talk to you guys about. That a lot of people have been saying this card is short printed inside of the set. You'll get about one every other box. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is pulling 6 secret rares in a case is not terrible, especially when it's the most sought after card. If I remember correctly, Brionnic was, oh my god, Necros Brionnic was terrible. I think it was like one every other case, or it was something ridiculous for Necros or Brionnic. So no, Sky Striker Mobilize Engage is nothing like Brionnic. So we can assume that this card won't hit the $170 range, the $220 range. I think right at this second, it does have a $50 price tag. Expect that to drop. If you guys pull this card, I think it would be safe to get rid of this card because it's one every other box, as well as some other pretty neat cards inside of the set. I can see this card at maximum being a $70 card, but that's only if Sky Strikers dominate the game, which again, they're missing Christian Needlefiber, they're missing Summon Sorceress, even for America right now. They're missing quite a bit of cards, not saying that they still can't be good, but they won't be as dominant as they were in the TCG. I think Konami is making pretty good strides on making our game a little more balanced than what we would see in the TCG, and this card is the main card. For people that don't know, if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, add one Brandish card from your deck to your hand, except Brandish Startup Engage. If you have 3 or more spell cards in your graveyard, draw 1 card. So it's an extremely good card. It is the best card of the set. I can see it settling at a $35 card at the end of the day. The next card we're going to be talking about is Sky Striker Afterburner. Now, this card isn't necessarily bad. I don't think it deserves its secret rare status, but that's nonetheless, a lot of Sky Striker players only play 1. So, if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, target one face-up monster on the field, destroy it. If you have 3 or more spell cards in your graveyard, you can destroy 1 spell or trap card on the field. Now, I can see them playing 2. Again, I can see this being a $10 to $15 secret rare, mainly because the Sky Striker cards are pretty generic. So, you could play a Sky Striker engine in just about everything, which makes a lot of decks a lot better. But I just don't really see it deserving of the secret rare title that it has, and I see it as a $10 to $15 card when all of the dust settles. Next is going to be Sky Striker Maneuver Jamming Wave. Is this the correct card? Sky Striker Maneuver Jamming Waves. It says if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, target 1 spell or trap card on the field, destroy it. Then if 3 or more spell cards in your graveyard, destroy 1 monster on the field. So it's the exact opposite of Afterburner, and it is a secret rare itself. It is, it's the exact same thing. I don't see builds playing more than 1 or 2 of these guys, so I don't see this guy being more than a $10 to $15 card in its own right. Don't get me wrong, these cards are pretty good. Being able to destroy a spell or trapper, being able to destroy a monster, and then turning around and being able to destroy a spell or trapper monster on top of that, and all you have to do is have 3 spell cards in your graveyard. It seems extremely easy for the Brandishes to do stuff like that. The next card is a highly debated card. This card's actually a super. I don't think this is the highly debated card. Notice, I'm sorry, this isn't the highly debated card. The next card after this is the highly debated card. This is Sky Striker Mecha Hornet Drones, and it's a super rare in the set Really happy that this card is the super rare. I felt that if this was the secret rare, it'd probably be as expensive as Engage. This card does, if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, especially when Brandish Maiden token, your Sky Striker token, in defense position, but it cannot be tributed. If you control 3 or more spell cards, its attack becomes 1500. Its attack and defense. Now, this card is really good because it starts off a lot of decks with a token monster to the side of the field. But even more importantly, you can activate this card, summon your token, and go straight into a Brandish monster like Shikizu or even, not Shikizu, Shikizu or Kagari. You can go into either of those. So it's really important to the combos. This actually is the combo-like card. I feel that it's going to be like the super rare. If you guys don't have any, you might want to get some because it is that important. Now to the most, I don't want to say popular, but I want to say highly debated card is Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor. And this card is a secret rare in the set. It is something that you do need 3 of if you guys are going to be playing the Sky Striker archetype. So it is going to be in high demand. I can see this card being a $50 card right now and settling to $30 in itself. It says if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, target one effect monster on the field. Its effects are negated until the end of the turn. If you have 3 more spell cards in your graveyard, you can take control of that monster into the end phase. So this card is like, it's good and then it's not good. So if you think about it, if you put it in a nutshell, you're like, fuck, I get the negate monster effects and I get to take control of monsters. That isn't necessarily how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works. Now, let's go a little bit further back to Mind Control. Mind Control seems like an extraordinarily powerful card on paper, but nobody plays it. Like, that's like the thing. And Mind Control isn't a bad card. It's an extremely good card, but taking control of your opponent's monster is a lot different than what it used to be in older Yu-Gi-Oh! Older Yu-Gi-Oh! Taking control of your opponent's monster meant free Xyz, free Synchro, free this, free that. It was just godly. Now taking control of your opponent's monster is like, what am I going to do with your monster? Like, a lot of things come into light. Yeah, you could link summon with it, but it's like, I think the link pool isn't big enough right at this second for the take control effect. Now, the negation is pretty good. The only problem I find with the negation is that it doesn't get rid of the monster, but hey, you can't have your cake and eat it. It's a really good card, and I can see it being a $30 card. Excuse me. Maybe I shouldn't have did this when I woke up. I can see this card being a $30 card. The next card is Sky Striker Mecha Eagle Booster. I think this was the worst Sky Striker monster or Sky Striker spell card we had. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, target one face-up monster on the field. This turn it is unaffected by card effect except the zone. Also, if you have 3 more spell cards, it cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. I mean, it's not a terrible card. It's just not an outrageously good card like the other Brandish cards. It is a super rare, so no need to have to worry about getting it. It should pop up pretty much. And I think that it's maybe a one of, hey, Amari, be quiet a little bit, okay? I think it is maybe a one of inside of the deck, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. The next card is going to be Sky Striker Mecha Shark Cannon, which is another secret rare inside of the set. This card I think I'm the most excited for because there's so much graveyard reliancy in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, this card is also a one of, maybe a 2 of inside of the Sky Striker deck, but it's still a really good card. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it. If you have 3 or more spell cards in your graveyard, you can spell summon that monster to your side of the field, but it cannot attack. Now, this card almost has similarities to the Widow Anchor because you're like, oh, I get a free monster, and then you're like, what am I going to do with that monster? And so many things, especially since you special summon it to your main monster zone, and in this deck, it's really hard, or you don't really want monsters in your main monster zone to start comboing off. So, it could be a little bit of an awkward card sometimes, but it is a pretty decent card. I actually like this because controlling the opponent's graveyard is starting to become the new thing with these new sets. The next card we're going to be talking about is Sky Striker Mercenary, Mech Armory Hercules Base. And this card, if I remember correctly, was not good at all. Activate only if you control no monsters in your main monster zone. The equipped monster cannot attack directly, but it can make 2 attacks during each battle phase. If the equipped monster destroys the monster by battle, you have 3 more spell cards in your graveyard, draw 1 card. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target up to 3 Brandish cards in your graveyard, shuffle them into your deck. So it's not a terribly bad card, but it's not necessarily a good card. If the last effect said target 3 Brandish cards in your graveyard, shuffle them into your deck and draw a card, that would be a little better, but you also have to remember you want your Brandish cards in your graveyard because they count as spell cards when you activate your other spell cards so you can gain their second spell effect. It's just not a terribly great card. I hope it's a super rare. I think it is a super rare. It is a super rare. The last secret rare of the set, if I'm correct, or one of the last secret rares, is going to be Sky Striker Mecha Modules Multi-Roll. And this card's pretty important to the deck. Once per turn, you can target one card you control, send it to the graveyard. Also, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to your spell card activations this turn. Once per turn during your end phase, you can set Sky Striker spells with different names from your graveyard to your side of the field. Excuse me. Oh, man. I'm sorry. I apologize, guys. I'm just terrible. Up to the number of Sky Striker spell cards you activated this turn while this card was face up on the field, but banish them when they leave the field. This card's really good for setting up. I can see it being a $20 secret rare. You do need 3 of them, unfortunately. It's just not as important as the other ones. Hey, Amari, go to your room. Yeah, go to your room. Go to your room. Daddy's recording. Don't have kids, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you got to put that smack down. But anyways, yeah, I can see Sky Striker Mecha Modules Multi-Roll being a pretty good card for the deck. Seems like a 3 of, if you ask me. I can see it being an easy $30, $40 card. Just a really highly sought after card because it is pretty important to the strategy. Now, I think that is our last secret rare. No, we have one more secret. No. I apologize. That is our last secret rare of the entire Sky Striker set. I really can't get a good gauge on this card because the more I think about it, the more like it's very useful, but it's like I don't need it. Like you could probably survive. Like it's not as important as Widow Anchor. It's not as important as obviously the what's that card called? Engage. It's not as important as those cards, but it's still a pretty decent card. So I think they put us in an awkward spot by making it secret. And then the last secret rare is going to be, or this last super rare is going to be Sky Striker Airspace Area 0. This card says you can target one other card you control, excavate the top 3 cards from your deck, add the excavated Brandish card to your hand, also shuffle the rest back into the deck. Then if a Brandish card was excavated, send the targeted card to the graveyard. If this card is sent from the field zone to the graveyard by a card effect, you special one Brandish Maiden from your deck. You can only use each effect of Brandish Airspace Area 0 once per turn. I can see a Zodiac Brandish deck coming out. It'd be pretty fun to play. I'm not sure how to work because, Zodiac monsters occupy that main monster zone. But I think Brandish Zodiac would be pretty fun to play with Aerospace Area 0. It's going to be pretty good. I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure if it's going to be great, but this card is really important to the deck. Again, it's a super rare, so it shouldn't be that hard to get a hold of. But if you guys do have them, you might want to hold on to them. Actually, I don't think this card is as important or as going to be highly sought after the other cards because this card is more specific to a to a Sky Striker deck. But that is all for the Sky Striker cards that come in the set. No, we don't get the Earth one. No, we won't get the Wind one in this set, but we do get the Water one and the Fire one. Let's talk about those reprints because there's quite a few reprints in this set that might make some people a little mad and might make some people extremely happy. Okay, so for the last part is the secret rares. Looking at it, I think there's maybe one reprint card that got its secret rare print. I'm looking at the Wikipedia right now. I'm not seeing anything. Vampire Retainer, Vampire Waker, Bram's a super rare. I don't think that there's maybe one card that got a secret rare reprint as a secret rare. So it's kind of cool that we have a whole bunch of lower rarity reprints, but some of these reprints are like, why did you reprint these? It doesn't really make too much sense. So, Shadow Vampire is one of the cards that did get reprinted. It's for the Vampire archetype. When this card is normal summon, you can special one Dark Vampire monster from your hand or deck. But if you do, only that monster can attack for the rest of the turn. This card cannot be used for an Xyz summon except for the Xyz of all Dark monsters. This card is actually pretty good, and it's a super rare. I prefer to have the secret rares if I were you guys, but it does take a hit on these people that had these secret rares, such as myself, that were probably looking to get some cash off of the secret rares. Maybe there still might be some people. Crimson Vampire Bram is also reprinted as a super rare, and it requires 2 level 5 zombie monsters. Detachable material, target one card in your opponent's graveyard, special summon that target to your side of the field. But if you do, only that monster can attack for the rest of the turn. You can only use this effect of Crimson Vampire Bram once per turn during the standby phase of the next turn. After this card you control was destroyed by your opponent's card, either by battle or card effect, and since your graveyard, special summon this card in face-up defense position. A pretty decent card. I see it as being a one-of if your extra deck is cramped. It's not necessarily a bad card, but it's not necessarily a very powerful card. for the Vampire strategy. The next card we're going to be talking about is Armageddon Knight receiving a super reprint. Now, if I were you guys, I would get as many copies of this card as possible. Armageddon Knight has been trending in the upward position. It is an extremely powerful card, and I would pick up as many copies as possible. Now, I'm not telling you guys Armageddon Knight is going to be an expensive card like in the next couple of months. I'm not telling you guys Armageddon Knight is going to be an expensive card in the next year. I'm going to tell you guys 5 years from now, when they don't reprint Armageddon Knight again, because we've already received 2 reprints in the last 2 years, this card actually might be worth something when dark decks make a good comeback. So, and they're not going to be worth anything when it comes out. It's going to be like 10 cents. It's almost going to be like Manju of 10,000 Hands. Manju of 10,000 Hands Super Rare was worth nothing, and now they're $8. So, I don't know. Caution to your own wind. Armageddon Knight were already trending up before the reprint got announced. I think picking these cards up won't be a bad idea. The next card we're going to be talking about is Plague Spreader Zombie getting a reprint is a super rare, kind of unnecessary, seeing I don't think there's a single deck that uses Plague Spreader Zombie, to be honest with you guys. I could be wrong. I know a lot of people do like Plague Spreader Zombie. It's a pretty good card, but I just didn't think that it needed a super rare reprint after we've already had an ultra rare reprint. I want to say last year or 2 years ago or something like that, and it's not that hard to get. It's not even in high demand. Dark Grepher is a super rare reprint. This card is not as powerful, quote unquote, like not highly sought after as Armageddon Knight, but still, nonetheless, it's still a very good card. I'd probably pick these guys up too, because it's just an awesome card. Really good card to have a hold of, especially if you guys don't have it. Now, the biggest kick in the nuts is Toon Table of Contents as a super rare. For the people that did not know, Toon Table of Contents came super rare. Oh God, I can't remember. I think it was inside of a Turbo Pack set, and they were like $100 each. Now they're getting a super rare, and you're almost guaranteed to get some. So pick these guys up as many as possible, probably, because if Toon Table of Contents doesn't get another reprint, then these guys could go up to about $5, $10 as well. Really kicking the nuts for all the people that do have the Turbo Pack versions of Toon Table of Contents. I feel sorry for you guys, but still, nonetheless, it is what it is. So on to the next slew of cards that we have that are going to be reprinted. The Monarch Stormforge gets reprinted again as a super rare. I think that this was unnecessary. We already have an ultra rare print of this card from Legendary Collection Kaiba. Now, granted, Legendary Collection Kaiba isn't as easy to pull cards, but still at the same time, it's like, you guys have a big opportunity to pick them up now. They're not expensive right now, so you could get the ultra rares. I don't really see a need of getting the super rares. If you guys hear Overwatch in the background, I was just updating for the new update. Yeah, because, I love Overwatch. But, let me see if I actually can turn this down. Actually, yeah, there we're good. If you guys pick up Monarch Stormforge, I don't think it's a good investment. I think it would be a better investment to pick up the Ultras, because the Supers won't really do anything. At least now we know there's no reason to have Gold Monarch Stormforge inside of your Monarch deck. I think that it would have been better as a secret rare reprint, but still, it's like you just got reprinted. Drowning Mirror Force getting reprinted as a super rare. If I remember correctly, it got reprinted inside of a set. Then it got reprinted inside of a structure deck, and now it's getting a super rare reprint. Don't know what they're like. I think it was really random to include Drowning Mirror Force in this. This has no impact on the game, and it doesn't even really have a price tag. So it was really interesting to see that card getting reprint. Mystic Tomato getting printed as a super rare. Now, if you guys ask me, Mystic Tomato reprint with the Dark Armageddon Knight and the Dark Grepher reprints, if you ask me, that's signaling towards dark decks are going to be mad good very soon, and they're trying to get you prepared, as much prepared for dark decks as possible. So I'd probably start picking up some of those good dark cards, Creeping Darkness, Mystic Tomato Secret Rares, Armageddon Knights, Dark Greffers, all that other stuff. I might start picking those up, Dark Arm Dragons and such. Dark Arm Dragon has received like 3 reprints or 2 reprints in the past couple of years, so maybe dark decks are on the rise. Next is Vampire Sorceress, and this is a huge kick in the dick to the people that have the ultra rares, but not too bad, because some people do like the high rarity ultra rares as opposed to the super rares, and this is pretty good for the Vampire deck. Let me read you guys its effect. If this card is in possession and sent to your graveyard part of an opponent's card effect or battle, you can have 1 Dark Vampire monster or 1 Vampire spell or trap card from your deck to your hand, so it's not that bad. Also, here's the best effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard. 1 Dark Vampire monster you can normal summon this turn, can be summoned without tributing. So it's a pretty good card. The Vampire archetype does necessarily still revolve around this guy. The only problem is that it has to be sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect or by battle. So isn't that great in that aspect? But it's graveyard. God, excuse me. but his graveyard effect can come in handy to be able to summon those high-level vampire monsters for free. Next, a reprinted super rare is Vampire Vamp. I think this was a one-of inside of the deck. Or is this? No, it's a level 6. The other person's one-of. Once per turn, when a vampire monster you control is normal summoned to your side of the field, you can target one monster your opponent controls whose attack is higher than this card. Equip it to this card. This card gains attack equal to the combined original attack. Let me just stop right there. This card's trash. Don't play it. It looks nice, but it's not a great card for the vampire strategy. Next is Curry Bandit. Yeah, boy. Got another reprint. Not that we ever needed any. During the end phase, if this card was normal summon this card, you can tribute summon, excavate the top card comes to your deck, add one spell or trap card, send the rest to the graveyard. Again, I think it's still pointing towards dark decks are going to start to dominate very soon. Next is Scapegoat, or should I just say Scrapegoat, as a super rare. Now, I don't think that this will have any impact on the Retro Pack Ultras or the Secret Rares. I think this is just a cheap way to get super rares out of the way. Like, super rares are basically dead with this Scapegoat coming out, but the secret rares are still going to be highly sought after if you ask me. Really good card. Unless Scapegoat gets limited again, I can just see it being an extremely good card. Reinforcement of the Army reprinted as a super rare. I was really hoping for a secret rare. Let's just make sure it isn't a secret rare. I would really love for it to be a secret rare, but I doubt it. It would be really nice to finally get a reinforcement of the Army. That is super rare. So we're going to hit Control F and then reinforcement. Nope, it's a super rare. So unfortunately, we get another reinforcement of the Army reprint that just so happens to be super rare. So life sucks for us. To the next card, Allure of Darkness is a super rare. Like, how many fucking times is this card going to get reprinted? I literally, it just got reprinted a couple weeks ago I want to say a couple weeks ago. With the Layer of Darkness structure deck, and it's getting reprinted again as a super rare. Konami is really saying, hey, buy these dark deck cards. I'm still going to pick them up because, you know, it's a Lore of Darkness. And soon enough, this set will go out of print, and Lore of Darkness will be good again. Now, this was one of the more odd reprints because I just finished buying secret or super rare versions of these cards. Magical Citadel and Damien is getting a secret rare reprint inside of this set. So now I have to basically discard the super rares and go get secret rares because that's the highest rarity. But it was really weird to turn around and put this in the OTS pack and then turn around and put it as a secret rare inside of this set. I'm like, damn, Kamani, just pick one or the other. Make me waste money one or the other. So basically it just made all your OTS packs supers pretty redundant, just useless. Spellpower Grass is a super rare. I think that this Konami is also trying to gear towards spell counters being really good. I don't know how that will work out for them. It hasn't worked out for them in the past. They've tried multiple times and have failed, but with dark decks, they've only tried once and they overdid it. So Teleport Dark Arm was a thing. Ultimately, I'd still pick them up because, you know, super rares can't really go wrong with them. And if they do go up, they'll skyrocket because the highest print will be a super rare. Quick Boosters as a super rare. This is just another one of those trash cards inside of the set. Not a good card at all. There was a little combo with this card. Not good. I'm telling you, this card, I mean, and even if it was from like a vendor or a person that's trying to invest standpoint, just get the ultimate rares. They're not worth anything anymore. Foolish Burial Goods is a super rare. Now, this card's extremely good. I think that it's a good card. I'd pick up the secrets right now if I were you guys, because this card will go up eventually. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these investments, when they get reprinted as super rares, you got to wait for a couple of years to see a return, because you got to wait till the set goes completely out of print and almost nobody has it for those cards to go up. Mirror Force is a super rare. Don't expect this card to have any impact whatsoever. I think it was just a filler card for the set. And then the last card we're going to be talking about is Horn of the Phantom Beast as a super rare. Huge kick in the dick, because I have like 6 super rares from the Astral set. Now, does this mean Beast Warriors or Beast are going to get some play? Possibly not. Maybe it's just one of those filler cards, but still, nonetheless, it's a card to be reprinted inside of the set. Something I do want to talk about is Vampire Koala. I didn't get a picture of it, but it sucks. And then it was another vampire card or another whatever. Those also suck as well. That's pretty much it for the entire set. My complete review on the set is that it's not a great set. It's a good set for a side set, like a Hidden Arsenal set, because that's essentially what this set is. It's a Hidden Arsenal set. It's a pretty good set for that. But other than that, it's not a great set. I would not buy a case of this. I would probably stick my gut out and buy and just eat it and buy the singles. Mainly because, actually, no, I might buy, you know what? I wouldn't buy a case of this, but I'd probably buy like 6 boxes, because in theory 6 boxes should get you everything from this set. Literally, if you do not have 3 of everything in 6 boxes of this set, there's something you're doing wrong. And if these prices tend to be those prices, then yeah, it'll probably be cheaper to buy 6 boxes and you'll have everything from the set. Thank you guys so much for watching another segment of the TheCaliEffect. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below in the comment section, what do you guys think of this set? Also, be sure to destroy, smash, break, abuse that subscribe button as well as like button. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm TheCaliEffect, and it's been a pleasure. I am out. Hope you guys are having a great day like I am.